Good afternoon, and welcome to Making the Case with Dr. Akande. I'm Dr. Yemi Akande, and each week on the program, we'll bring you conversations with established and emerging leaders from a broad range of organizations as they offer their views on pressing local, national, and international issues that impact Northeast Ohio. Welcome to Making the Case with Yemi Akande. My guest today is Charles D'Angelo. Charles D'Angelo is the author of Think and Grow Thin, the revolutionary diet and weight loss system that will change your life in 88 days. Charles, welcome to my show.
Oh, thank you so much for having me, Amy. It's my honor and privilege to be here with you today.
Yes, I have to say that your book has just been exploding, not just on the internet, but also in such magazines as Time Magazine, in which former President Bill Clinton referred to it as a go-to book, just to summarize, in terms of eating healthy and just doing things that are in, the greater good for a person's
President Clinton
health.
has been a tremendous influence on me in so many ways. He's really been a role model in my life, considering how much good he and his organization does to confront and combat childhood obesity, an epidemic I was once part of.
Yes, I have to say that in reading your book, a couple of things certainly popped out at me. Looking at your picture in your sophomore year, I believe it is, and then flipping to the back of the book and looking at you now, and I think, what a transformation. Can you talk a little bit about your history in terms of how did you get to now?
Well, I think that the book is based upon my own personal pain of once being a morbidly obese teen, a person that's been there. So many people now are coming out with books that have been very fit, very energetic, very healthy much of their lives.
Right.
And it takes a special amount of empathy to really get how scary it is to feel trapped in a place that you absolutely abhor and hate. And I was there at 17, weighing 360 pounds, waking up in the middle of the night with frequent nosebleeds, being out of breath after just going up 3 or 4 stairs at high school, being socially ostracized. I've been there. I get it. So that pain serves as a tremendous motivator in my life to help people, to bring them out from that darkness to a place of a life that they really deserve and a quality of life that they've really desired for a long time.
Could you talk a little bit about what you would say was kind of the tipping point for you? Because in your book, you also talk about the genetics of, family. If someone were to look at your family, everyone was fat in your
I could
family.
be the king of excuses if I wanted to be, frankly.
Okay.
So when a person comes to me and gives me a whole list of why they think that they can't go after what they really want and really desire in their life, I can say, you can, because if I wanted to give myself a list of excuses, I certainly could have. My mother's side of the family struggled with alcoholism and addiction in that regard. My father's side of the family struggled with addiction to unhealthy foods. Growing up with the Italian heritage so prevalent all around me, I made the association mentally that food was pleasure. Food was love. You could reward yourself with it.
Right.
When you had a refrigerator full of sugar-laden, highly processed foods, your family was doing okay. And I didn't see the ramifications at that moment on my future in health, my future quality in relationships with the behaviors I was engaging in. So it took a series of events. It wasn't one thing. It wasn't one Oprah aha moment, oh my gosh, I have to change.
Right.
It was a series of things that were very painful, much of which stemmed from not accepting myself as I was. I grew up as a young boy. I was very different from all the other young boys because I was very empathetic. I was always very bright. School came very easy to me. And I looked towards older folks, teachers, neighbors, people that were older, and I really developed rapport and related with them more than I did children. So I was always a little bit different. And when you're different as a child, difference is sometimes equated with being a bad thing. And so I was bullied and teased. Well, being as highly sensitive as I was as a young man, I then pulled myself back. Well, when you pull back from the peer group as a child, the other kids then interpret that as you're rejecting them.
Right.
So that only exaggerated the bullying I was going through. I found my new best friend at that point, Little Debbie, or Ronald McDonald. And I started engaging in eating these very, very, very unhealthy things consistently. And I wasn't active because I remember as a young boy at recess, I would be the last one picked. Again, I didn't fit the societal standards of a boy. I never really enjoyed sports. I never really found those things to be quite interesting to me. So I was never Mr. Fitness or Mr. Athlete when I was a young person. And so by pulling back that way, I was also pulling back from engaging in activity. So you have no activity, you have overeating of the wrong foods, and you have a recipe for disaster.
Right, right. But something in you said, okay, this is it. I'm moving forward.
Well, what happened was this. I saved, let me preface all that with this statement.
Okay.
I had, by the time I was 17, and I come to the realization that my health was literally in the balance, that I may not live to see my high school graduation. I would go to a class, and it would be an air-conditioned room, and I would be dripping sweat, so much so that if I was taking an exam, the ink on my paper started to run from the perspiration dripping off my forehead.
Wow.
My heart was racing in my chest. My hands were always clammy. I was always flushed looking. The nurse would come by the classroom door and say, "Charles, I need to talk to you," and I would refuse to leave the classroom because I wanted to stay in denial.
Wow.
I get it. There's a certain amount of fear to really come into the realization that the decisions you've made have resulted in the state that you're in. But true power also emanates from that, because once you realize that it's your behaviors, not events, that determine your future,
right,
you then see your ability to change your behaviors and therefore influence your future in a positive way. So what happened was, I said, well, I better take some action. So I tried all the different things. I tried the drinks. I tried the pills. I tried this. I tried that. I went and did all these different things, and I could not get myself to be consistent. I figured there was something that was missing. There was no lack of healthy food programs. There's thousands of diet books. There was no lack of exercise DVDs or programs that you could watch at home to get active and fit. But I think something was missing, and that's what led to the development of my book and the development of my program. And that third leg of this three-legged stool, I call it, is the mindset, how to think about food, how to think about exercise, so that you have the right type of relationship with those two things so that you can remain consistent. Of course, diet's a huge part, which I, in my book, outline a very specific step-by-step guide on how to eat, when to eat, exactly down to the brands that you should get of things so that you know what to do. And I tell you exactly what to do with exercise as well. But that glue that holds it all together is how you're coming to those things. It's not a what-to-do book. It's a how-to-do book. So when I went to a gym at 17 years old, I was scared to death because I thought I would be the sore thumb. Everyone would be looking at me. My legs rubbed together. They were always chapped because I was so big it was even difficult to walk. I had saved money from working after school. I went up to the counter. I was given a great line, but a very enthusiastic young person that probably never struggled with their weight, but they said that this gym was going to change my life. And I started to sign the paperwork, but the manager came over, and he started to talk to the salesperson, and the next thing I know, they said that I wouldn't be able to sign up because I didn't have a credit card for recurrent billing. So here I built myself up enough to walk through a gym's doors.
And here's a roadblock.
And I was turned away. So I went home and I laid in my bed. It was an August day. I won't ever forget it. I was in high school. I didn't have air conditioning in my bedroom at that time, and I just plopped down on my back on the bed. And I remember I had Aladdin or some cartoon on the television in front of me on the nightstand there. And every time I would exhale, my stomach was so large, I wore a size 50-inch pant. It would obscure my view of the TV set, and I started to cry. As a young person, I was just fed up with life. I was literally considering calling it quits, that this is it, I'm done. I'm destined to be overweight. I'm destined to be unhappy. There's no future for me. I don't have a girlfriend. I don't have any friends. I absolutely hate being around people because I feel everyone's criticizing me and making fun of me. I don't want to do this anymore. And I just was breaking down in tears. And I didn't have anyone to talk to because at that point my mom was deep into addiction to alcohol. My father was working his tail off to support the family, and he was a blue-collar worker. He didn't understand the intellectual side of all this stuff. And he was overweight himself. So I felt very isolated, very alone. And I looked at the ceiling. And at 17, I said to myself, and I said to the ceiling, I said to God, I said, God, if you'll simply help me become normal. I didn't say have a six-pack. I didn't say become a person that's going to be endorsed by a president of the United States. I didn't say any of these things. I said, help me to get normal, because I know you've given me a set of gifts and skills that I am seriously hindering through my behaviors, and I don't know what to do. please, please help me, and I will do everything I can to contribute to other people's lives in a positive way. I'll use every gift, every skill, every talent you've given me to be able to move, motivate, inspire, challenge, excite people in this world. I'll do everything I can. And I drifted off to sleep, and I woke up, and I had this renewed sense of hope, almost like a veil of grace had been draped over me. And I woke up, and I had a little bit of a spark in me. I felt like things are going to work out. Like, even though it seems really bad and it's really dark right now, there's a light here, and all you have to do is look for the direction you need to go in. So I went down to the basement. I told my father. He asked about what had happened. Was I able to join the gym? And I said, no, I wasn't. So he said, well, there's a gym on such and such street. He said, why don't you call over there? And I looked them up. They weren't in existence. So I called the 411. Right. They then said, oh, sure, there's a gym. It was by a different name. They connected me. They said, we take cash? Sure, come on. And I went on into the gym. I joined. I started looking for information from people at the fitness center that were healthy, that were fit, that were in my own peer group, people that were young, energetic, vibrant, that were living the quality of life that I wanted, and I started to talk to them and just put myself out there. I figured there's no danger in putting yourself out there and asking for help. And I just asked, what do you eat? What do you do for exercise? What's your lifestyle like? How do you think about these things? And I started reading tons and tons and tons of self-help books and motivational books, how to really get your psychology in check. Because, again, it wasn't, well, where's the magic diet? Please tell me the magic diet. There was no lack of people offering to tell me how to eat. That wasn't the problem. The problem was, how do you get yourself to be consistent? Because there's so much data out there, it's overwhelming to a person that's overweight. Absolutely. So what I've done in my book is I've simplified it. I've taken everything that I've developed over the last decade of my life that transformed my life and now transformed the lives of thousands of others, and I've put it into a very, very simple step-by-step guide of what to do with food, what to do with exercise, but most importantly, how to get your psychology in check and how to really take ownership of this issue so that not only do you reach your goal, but you maintain after you've lost all the weight you wanted to lose.
Wow. I'm having goosebumps here in the studio just certainly listening to your story because I'm very moved by it, and also your tenacity and also your persistence.
Well, I see every single day. I have young people come in my office, and I have folks that are married and folks that are later in life that they have literally went through life hating it. They are 55, 60 years old, and much of their life has been spent fighting a war that doesn't even exist. Do you understand? There is no war. This is something that's going on internally. You're not fighting against anything. This is something that you simply need to embrace. If you look at this as the only true way to conquer what I would call addiction is to replace it with a healthy one. That's the only way to truly conquer it. You have to find something that you can get addicted to that's actually going to help you rather than hurt you. And so many people are engaged in this negative cycle. And I have it literally breaks my heart when I have a young man, 16, 17 years old, that's struggling with identity issues, struggling with being bullied, a young lady that comes in here who's never been kissed and never been on a date, and she's in her mid to late 20s, and she feels that she's worthless, all because of this simple challenge. It's so easy to overcome once a person's ready to take responsibility. God helps those who are willing to do the work. You have to have faith, but remember the great quote, and a great mentor of mine who actually wrote the introduction for the book, David Stewart, who's a very religious man in his own right and very spiritual man in his own right, faith without works is dead. You can have all the faith in the world, but if you're not willing to put forth the effort and the work, you are fighting a losing battle. You have to do the work. And I will tell you exactly what to do so that you don't feel that you're alone in this battle. You don't feel that you are fighting this and not having the strategies are going to work. This has worked for so many people, but it only works when you do what you're supposed to be doing, which I outline very clearly in the book.
Yeah, nobody can do it for you.
No one could do it for me. And that was a painful realization to come to at just that tender age of 15, 16, 17 years old when I started to have all these thoughts, when I started to realize that this was something that only I could change and that only I could determine the outcome of, not my parents, not my family, not my teachers, not the counselors at school, not anyone else. It had to be me. But you know what is most exciting about that statement is that it's not our inadequacies that scare us. It's our true power that scares us, because God's gifted us with a unique ability to have a huge impact in this world. And so many people are walking through the world, and they've created a fictitious buffer between them and other people. They've insulated themselves because they've been hurt before. And I get it, because I was hurt a lot. But you can't let your past drive you. You need to learn how to reinterpret your past in an empowering way so that you can actually use that to propel you, rather than force you into a wall that you don't want to be driven into, actually onto a clear path down a road that's lined with gorgeous trees and a beautiful scenery towards a place that you want to go, rather than this dark desperation road that you've been on. All you have to do is change direction. But so many people have given up because they've tried, and in their opinion, they've failed before. I don't believe there's any such thing as failure. I think there's such thing as getting a result, and people haven't gotten the result that they've wanted, and many people haven't gotten the result that they've wanted time and time again. So now they're at the point they're about to give up, and they're saying, well, this is just another darn diet. This is just another darn exercise program. No, this isn't. This is a system for how to think, how to disconnect from food, and then learn how to reconnect to food in a healthy way, so that you're in charge of your life, and ultimately you're in charge of your destiny.
You know, one of the things that struck me about your book was the fact that in the title, Think and Grow Thin, the revolutionary diet and weight loss system that will change your life in 88 days. Talk to me a little bit about the significance of the specific 88 days that you've selected.
The reason that I say that is to take kind of a jab at the 90-day programs, frankly. It's not as metaphysical as much of the other content is in the book. But what it's saying is simply this, is that the number, the quantifiable amount of days that you put on this really is irrelevant. Change happens the moment you make the decision to commit. Again, it's not events that are determining what's going to happen in your life. It's the decisions you're making after an event. So the way to really create lasting change is to really adapt into a thinking program of positivity. Not only, oh, well, everything's great and who cares that I've just lost my loved one. No, I'm not saying don't be real. What I'm saying is look at things a little better than they are rather than worse than they are. Start to look at things in a way that's actually going to empower you and help you move forward. A great, great influence on my life has been Tony Robbins, who's a remarkable, remarkable coach, speaker. He prefers not to be called a motivational speaker because he does a lot more than that. But he has a saying that goes, the past does not equal the future. In other words, simply because something happened doesn't mean you should expect it to happen again. But as humans, we look to prevent ourselves from experiencing pain into the future. So we really have developed a wonderful ability to look and recognize patterns in our lives. Unfortunately, it's like the trees and forest phenomenon. When you're in the trees, it's very difficult to see the whole forest. But I've been down in the trees, and I've been in the helicopter above the forest. So I can tell you this is where you're going, and if you don't change, you're headed to a place that you're really, really not going to be excited about, and you're not going to have the quality of life that you could ultimately have. You're losing out. And I have these young people, to go back to what I was saying, I have these young people that come in my office that are going through identity issues. Kids are calling them, and this happened to me. They made fun of me in all sorts of ways just because I was different. And so when I see these young people that come and sit across the desk from me, and I see so much pain in their eyes, and they're so young, and here they are at 15, 16 years old. Some have actually considered committing suicide because of the bullying they're experiencing. How can we not take action? How can, as adults, can we not step in and say this is not right and be models for excellence and be models to help these young people bring about in their lives the quality that they deserve, the confidence that they deserve. These are the future. These people are the future of our society, and we have to breed into them the abilities, the strategies, and the confidence to be able to be leaders in the future. And we have a society that I believe is very unaccepting of people that are different for a multitude of reasons. For weight, sexuality is one thing, all sorts of different reasons. And I think if people really learn to just start to love themselves and to treat themselves with respect, they would treat others with respect. Our body is kind of a picture an external picture to others of what we think of ourselves. And if you don't think much of yourself, you're simply not going to be eating right most times. You're not going to be putting much activity into your life because it shows you really don't care much about yourself. And if you don't respect yourself, who else is going to respect you? So you have to start to claim who you are by your own actions and start to really determine where you want to go by identifying where you want to go.
Correct. Now, one of the things that I wanted to touch upon, and you mentioned earlier, is just the rash of bullying that's going on
Absolutely.
at many schools across the nation, and for that matter, across the world. What advice do you have for both teachers, principals, administrators, and the kids themselves? Where can we begin to attack this problem?
I think there has to be a far bigger embracing of an open-door policy so that children feel comfortable going to those authority figures in their school if these things are occurring. As a young person, I felt I had nowhere to turn. I would get to school early before all the other kids did so that I could go and sit in the bathroom until the school bell rang and then go to class. At one point in my life, there was a time where we would have to go to a camp for a week as part of the curriculum. It was about 6th or 7th grade. And that was really a peak moment when I was being terribly bullied. I was made fun of. I won't ever forget, and I talk about this in the book. I had, for the first time as an overweight grade schooler, been invited to one of the homes of my classmates to work on some project. And I went over there, and I was overweight by that point. And I'm sitting in the basement with this young man, and all the other kids from the neighborhood, because they all lived within a certain neighborhood, and they were really kind of a clique. And this goes on a lot nowadays, as well as it did back then. And they all came to the window, and they started banging on the window and saying, "Get out of here, blah, 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 blah." And it seared into my memory a pain that is beyond compare, because I felt here I had really put myself out there. I had went to this child's home that for the first time I was excited about going. My mom and dad took me to JCPenney's to buy a new outfit so I felt like I would fit in and everything else. And here I was met with more pain.
Wow.
So I think that these types of things are going on more than most people recognize. And there's a beauty in the innocence of children. And for that to be assaulted and for that to be abused, I think is beyond what we should accept. And I think that students, peers that see this going on should take a stand and do what's right. I really believe that even though it's sometimes the most difficult thing to do, you should still do the right thing. You should stand up for your peers. You should be a leader. You should say, we're not going to accept this in the group. And the person that's bullying should be the one that feels ostracized, not the child that's different, because it's the differences that make America, that make our society such a great place to live and such a culture that nurtures growth and innovation. If we don't stop that, we're seriously hindering our nation's ability to really further its interest in the future, I believe.
Absolutely. And one of the, I would say, not even, it's an undercurrent in how you talk and also in your book, is religion, or for that matter, spirituality. What role does that play in everything you do? Huge.
It's immense. Now, my program's not sectarian. Okay. I'm Christian, but it's by no means sectarian. I just believe that having a higher power is very, very, very important, because let's face it, you need a lot of grace to go through this world and to get through without nicks and bruises.
Right.
There's a lot of stuff that we come up against as humans that's challenging. And I think having a higher power is very, very helpful. And I choose to call my higher power God. And when I make a decision, I ask myself, am I doing this on purpose or on outcome? I try to stay on purpose. In other words, I've come up with really, what's my conviction? Why do I do what I do? I do what I do to inspire, motivate, serve people, to give people more than they expect when they interact with me, because you never know what's going on in a person's personal life when you're dealing with them. When you're walking through a mall, when you're going through the hall at school, when you're in your office and you see someone and they are really, really bitter and they really seem like a miserable person that you wouldn't want to be around, they probably have a reason for being that way. And why make their life more difficult and more painful, and why give them more reason to believe that this world is a terrible place by not smiling, by not engaging in a conversation? I go to movie theaters all the time. I love going to movies. And me and my buddy from college, Steve, we always go once a week. We have kind of a brother relationship, he and I. My girlfriend lets me go, and his fiance lets him go.
Right.
So that's a nice thing. So we go, and I go to a movie theater, and if I see a woman or a girl that's overweight and I can tell she's a bit self-conscious about herself, I will make an effort to engage in conversation with her, to smile at her, to joke with her, to make her feel better about herself. Because as an overweight person, when I was 15, 16 years old, whenever someone would look at me, I interpreted that as they were looking critically at me. They were probably looking at me in pity. So when I talk to people, when I walk through a mall or when I walk through a movie theater and I'm buying a diet soda or whatever, I talk to people to try to bring about positivity in that person's life. You don't know what difference that might make. You don't know what that person's thinking at that moment. That person might be going through so much pain. They might have a terrible, chaotic environment at home. And for that day, you made their day by simply smiling at them. And again, look at the power that God's given you to be able to have an impact on people's lives. And so many people get so distracted now with technology and all these different things that they forget the human-to-human interaction and how important that is and how much better you can make the world by simply spending a little time, by being nice, by being kind, and by being loving. But it all comes back to how you feel about yourself. If you don't love yourself, if you don't have it on the inside, you certainly can't give out what you don't have yourself.
I'm sure some of my listeners who are now wondering, having heard your history, how have you been able to impact members of your family with this rewiring of your brain, so to speak?
That is a very, very, very difficult subject for so many people that come to me. Many people that come to me say, you know, Charles, I really need to lose weight, but my husband's overweight too. Or, you know, Charles, I really need to lose weight, but my son does too, or this or that. One thing is that you have to have boundaries. Part of my problem came about from not having boundaries because I was trying to control my mom's addiction to alcohol. I was throwing bottles away. I was like the detective of the house. I was trying to be the parent to her. And that created a boundary issue for me because I wasn't taking care of myself. Now, I still was excelling at school. I was doing great there. On the outside, it looked like everything was just fine and dandy. In fact, in high school, at 360 pounds, I was Student of the Year 3 years in a row, or 2 or 3 years in a row. I don't remember exactly, but I had a 4.0 GPA. I knew how to manage those things, how to compartmentalize things. But on the inside, I was crumbling. So drawing boundaries by understanding that a person has to choose change to be successful at it. You can inspire, you can use your life as a model and example, but just because you're taking action does not mean you should expect other people are going to take action too.
Right.
And by making that clarification, it frees you of the responsibility and of the guilt that you feel that others, of the pain that others experience in life. That's through their own decision and their own making. What you can do is be available, be a resource, be someone that they can come to and talk to about their issues so that they then can take responsibility and change their lives through their own decision-making. But you can't force it upon anyone. I couldn't force my mom to change. She had to go through a lot of treatment to be able to really overcome the addiction, the challenge she had with alcohol. My father's family was conditioned for years and years and years and years to associate pleasure to eating. Fortunately, before my grandfather died, he came and joined the gym I was working out at. I helped him lose 37 pounds.
That's great.
My sister has lost now nearly 55 pounds. My father, he's overweight. He joined the gym. I can't say much for my influence on how he eats, but I can say that he's active and he's made some changes. But again, the thing that's important is you have to understand, just because you make a significant change in your life, there's a boundary. You can't expect those around you to embrace that change. But what you can expect of yourself is to be a good role model and to live the quality of life that's going to inspire others to want to change because they see how much better your life is because of the decisions you made.
Absolutely, and I think you've hit the nail on the head, so to speak, because I happen to know there's a handful of people out there who feel that it's their responsibility to change others.
Well, how many women and men, I should say both, but I hear this a lot from my female clients that say the reason they're 55 and overweight is because for the last 22 years of their life, they've been raising their children. And they've been the last priority on their list. This is not another thing to add to the list. this is what the list is based upon. If you want to be the best mom, if you want to be the best father, if you want to be the best brother, if you want to be the best business leader, if you want to be the best industry leader, you need to be healthy. You need to have energy, because without energy, what can you do? Without health, what can you do? So many of us are so fixed upon so many trivial issues. You know, what really puts things into context is when you see somebody with a terminal illness, when you see someone that has cancer, when you see someone that's at the end of their behaviors, that's made decisions over a long period of time, that's gotten to them to the place that they have to have a heart stent put in. They have to have a kidney replaced. They have to have dialysis constantly. They have to have an amputation because their diabetes has gotten so out of control that now they don't have the choice if they want to continue to live. And when you see that immense amount of pain and fear where a person is, for the first time in their life, confronting true mortality, it is motivating. Why get yourself to that place? Why allow yourself to get to that painful place? Why not take some steps to think ahead? Ask yourself if right now you're 50, 60, 70 pounds overweight, or if you're just 10 or 20 pounds overweight. If that's happened over a short period of time, how long is it going to be before you're even worse off?
Right.
Why not put in place a very simple to follow, easy program of cardiovascular exercise, of healthy eating, and of thinking so that you can get all these things moving in the direction you want them to move. Your health is within your control. That's what my message is. I'm not only providing a method of how to do it. It's my mission to do this. This is what I was born to do and what I love to do. And what I want people to hear is that you can do this. Take my example. Don't even just take my example. Look at the thousands of people that I've counseled over the years that have made this a way of life for them and embrace it. You can change. No matter how many times you've tried before, it is not too late. As they say, it's never too late to change the oil in your car.
Right.
So make the decision, embrace it, and make your life the way that you want it.
Absolutely. You know, one of the things that I'm curious about is what are some of the, not for lack of a better way of putting it, but what are some of the key quick strategies that people can begin today?
I'd say number one is remove all spontaneity from their eating habits. In other words, become very, very structured in how they're eating. If they're looking for a very precise, easy-to-follow plan, it's in the book.
Right.
But what I would say is you need to eliminate the need for variety and spontaneity if you truly have an issue with food. Because if you give yourself a little of the drug,
right,
it's very, very difficult to fully overcome this. It's like just taking a little bit of heroin.
Yeah.
Or just saying, I'm quitting smoking, but I'm just having 2 cigarettes a day instead of a pack. You're still giving yourself the drug. You need to disconnect. You need to totally disconnect. You need to experience life, the quality of life that you really want by having real, true energy, by experiencing relationships that you've really desired for a long time. I was the young boy that on the night of a dance, I was driving in my Honda Civic on a cold winter night by the gymnasium with my breath, vapor in the air, looking at the flashing lights through the windows and the couples in love holding hands walking to the doors, and here I am on the outside, separated because of my own decisions. I know what that loneliness feels like. You don't need to feel lonely. Eliminate spontaneity. Number 2, incorporate exercise into your life and make it as important as a business meeting every single day. That every day, this time, this 30 minutes, this hour at most, is all you need to do so that you have that piece in place. So you have the one leg, the diet, in place. You have the second leg of this 3-legged stool in place with the exercise. And thirdly, start to nourish your mind as much as you're nourishing your body in this program. Give yourself positive things to think about.
Such
Catch
as?
yourself.
Okay.
When you're starting to think negatively, replace that with a positive. Start to catch yourself in how you're thinking about things. Oftentimes, our behaviors are a result of how we're talking to ourselves. We're constantly telling ourselves why we're inadequate. If you ask yourself why you're inadequate, your brain's going to tell you why you're inadequate. Stop asking yourself negative things. Start to ask yourself, how can I make this the best thing I've done for myself? How can I be consistent? How can I find somebody, a partner, to do this alongside? Start to ask things that are going to drive your life in the direction you want it to go, rather than focusing on the things you don't want in your life. I really believe that we attract, in a way, much what our focus is on. Those things that we really focus on tend to germinate and grow in our life.
True.
And what you need to do is start to decide, what do you want in your life, and put your focus on that rather than what you don't want in your life.
Absolutely. And, I also have to ask you this question in terms of, let's look out to 50, 75 years from now. What are you hoping your legacy would be?
I would say that I just want to make certain that everyone that encounters me, quote-unquote me, whether it be in my written work, whether it be in my audio, this interview, video, whatever way a person encounters me, that there's been a connection made, that they realize that God has a special mission unique to them, and that they need to understand that regardless of what they've been told about themselves, it doesn't matter what they are, if they're black, white, Hispanic, Chinese, overweight, underweight, abused, this, that, they were molested, raped when they were a child. I understand all the pain that comes with all those things. But I think that they need to accept that they're a very, very special, gifted person, that they are deserving of love. And to feel love, they need to learn how to give that love to themselves by accepting themselves as they are. And when I came to accept myself as different, as a man, I'm 26 years old now. I have a girlfriend. I have a quality of life that I've dreamt of having. Mm-hmm. But I like watching Twilight. I like watching Harry Potter. And I'm a big, muscular guy. Yeah. People say things. I really don't care.
Right.
Because I am who I am. You're no longer living a life that others have put upon you, but you're living the life that you've designed, and a life that's really fulfilling.
Wow. And that is very, very powerful indeed. And something you just mentioned there, the fact that you are very, very young, so to speak.
26 years old.
26, but you're an old soul.
Well, I just say this. I say that I've been through a lot of difficult circumstances, what many people would call painful circumstances in my life. Mm-hmm. I think when a person sees that darkness that's out there, and there really is a lack of empathy today. Mm-hmm. In our society, a lot of people just don't look at others with love sometimes. And I'm not saying that in a judgmental way at all. I understand the world is what it is.
Right.
But what I'm saying is that I think that people could experience a lot more happiness if they had a little bit more empathy for people, if they looked into the eyes of the people that are around them and understand everyone's fighting their own challenges, and everyone has things that they're insecure about, and everyone feels a little, some people, a majority I would say in fact, feel a little inferior. If you can help build people up rather than take them down and put yourself aside, you can do so much good in this world. And we have so much power that God's given us in the abilities of being able to share, inspire, motivate others through our communications. It's taking a moment just to send an email to someone that's overweight and say, you were on my mind. I hope you're doing great. If you want to go to the gym, I'd love to go. I'm really trying to get my New Year's resolution to stick. Mm-hmm. Just showing interest in other people. I think if there was more empathy, we would see a lot less pain in this world.
Absolutely. No truer words, certainly, have been spoken by you. And it looks like that's all the time we have for today on Making the Case with Yamie Akande. I want to sincerely thank our guest, Charles D'Angelo, for joining me today.
Well, it's been my honor. And if anyone's out there that's tried everything and looking at this and saying, well, this is just another diet book, another exercise book, this isn't. This is so much more. And I hope that they'll just take a moment, pick it up, engage in the program, fully commit. Don't cheat at all. Yeah. And if they need any help, reach out through my website, charlesdangelo.com, or just Google me, and I'll do everything I can to help them along their way.
That's great. And the name of the book, again, is Think and Grow Thin, The Revolutionary Diet and Weight Loss System That Will Change Your Life in 88 Days. You can also pick up a copy of the book at Amazon.com. If you have questions or comments about today's program, please email them to mtc88.7@gmail.com.
Making the Case with Dr. Akande is produced with the support of WJCU in University Heights, Ohio. Our theme music is by Alexander May. I'm your host and executive producer, Dr. Yamie Akande, inviting you to tune in next week at the same time for another edition of Making the Case.